We're opening up the summertime mailbag here on Locked On 49ers. Some really great questions, grading John Lynch's drafts. And what about a Super Bowl swap, plucking one player from one team to another to have given the 49ers one more Lombardi? All that and more coming up on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Coach Crocky. That's where a lot of these questions come from. On Twitter, hit us up there to get involved in another mailbag. We're always open to topics and questions and ideas about these Niners. And we got a lot of preparing to go. Camp previews, positions, and division rival week coming up as well, looking at the opponents for the San Francisco 49ers as we approach training camp 2025. I do want to thank everybody for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Love our everydayers. Thanks for hanging out with us. Make sure you're subscribed up on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts and questions on YouTube comments as well. Hit us up over there if you want to get involved in another mailbag episode here about your San Francisco 49ers. Croc, I want to start with actually a tweet from Brett Coleman. Does amazing work. I'm sure a lot of folks watch his YouTube channel as well. And we were asked about something that he posted up last week, and I've actually been asked multiple times about this. And Josh says, is John Lynch a good drafter? Looking at this list, it really seems like the 49ers have really missed on a ton of young players. And he's responding to, and I'll put it on the screen here, Brett Coleman's tweet, at Brett Coleman on Twitter, says, not going to lie, it's kind of a miracle that nobody got fired. And this is kind of a subject that we've breached before here on the podcast, and I'll bring it up on the screen here. This is the tweet that was referenced by Brett Coleman, and he put it up there, which is basically just the list of players the 49ers have drafted between the 2020 and 2023 drafts. And for those of you not watching on YouTube and maybe they just can't see it or watching on a smaller screen, I'll talk about all the players in the draft picks. And if the 49ers are lucky that they didn't get fired through all of this. And really the big one, Croc, is 2021, right? With the Trey Lance move. And what you can't see on this list is they spent multiple other first-round draft picks to make that selection. And the easy, short answer to all of this is Brock Purdy saved their jobs, right? But at the same time, they drafted Brock Purdy too. So you got to give them some credit. So it's like you take away credit in one avenue, you got to give credit in another avenue, and it's vice versa. And what's amazing is when you ask about the 49ers, do they draft well? The answer is yes. And if the question is, do the 49ers draft poorly? The answer is yes. It is the weirdest roster I've ever seen in my life, Croc. You can't. And I always go back to, I think it was my guy Tyler Rowland when Rand Carthon was signed from the 49ers front office to be the GM of the Titans. And the question was, what is Rand Carthon going to bring from like John Lynch and the 49ers organization? And I think it was a similar answer with Washington when Adam Peters was signed as their GM. And it's like, what are these GMs going to bring over from the San Francisco 49ers? And my response is, man, you know what? I think the way that the front office and the coaching staff work together, I think is definitely a positive. I think that has lended to some bad draft picks where maybe the coaching staff was too involved and screwed up some really good scouting work by the scouts in some cases. But a collaboration, I think that's the strength of the 49ers organization at the top between John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, right? And feel free to chime in if you don't agree with that, Croc. But you can't like write the book and say, look, what we're going to do is light a bunch of first-round picks on fire, be well below average in the NFL in early picks, and the league isn't great anyway, even on early picks. So we're going to miss on most of our early picks, but we're going to be historically great in rounds 5 through 7 and have multiple All-Pros there. Like that can't be the pamphlet, right? That can't be this is how we're going to build a franchise. So the 49ers,
it's not supposed to be
so rare. It's unbelievable what they've done, actually.
It's kind of gotten to the point where that is to be expected, where like your first picks is just like, all right, we'll see. And then, but hey, they're going to be some guys, third, fourth, fifth round, really more so fourth, fifth, sixth round. And seventh round with Brock Purdy, right? That are going to really contribute. And that's been the case from the jump. You think about year one, all right? Who they get as an undrafted receiver? Kendrick Bourne, a guy that turned into a good football player for the 49ers, went and made some good money for New England. I think they just re-upped his contract. There were some other guys that contributed in that class as well. George Kittle, Trent Taylor, right? So that's kind of been their MO. There also was a Killer Witherspoon who was a third-round pick. And I know we kind of look at him as, I don't want to say a bust, maybe some people do, but he started a lot of football games for the 49ers. So you get that type of production out of a third-round pick, that amount of starts. I think that's a win. That's a win. So you see some wins there. And you kind of talked about one of the historic flops with drafting Trey Lance at the top of the draft and trading what you did to get him. But also in that same draft, you also have Diamador Lenore, who you re-upped and gave a really good contract to. Talanoa Hufanga turned into an all-pro. Elijah Mitchell was good when healthy, and you got him in the 6th round. I think you take that. And Jalen Moore, who just got paid a ton of money by the Kansas City Chiefs to come over and start. So I don't think it's as easy to say, oh, are they good? Are they bad? I will say this. You would like to see them have a little bit better batting average in the first 3 rounds. And
Yes.
That's where you really miss. It hurts even more when you use 3 first-round picks on Trey Lance. But even aside from that, there's been a lot of kind of, we'll see, and not a second contract for this guy, and didn't quite work out with that guy, and Drake Jackson, we got to cut this guy, and Trey Lance, we got to trade this guy. I mean, there's a lot of that with guys that you anticipate in the 49ers being able to count on those guys. If they're batting 500 in the first round, which I think is kind of the league average, cool. It feels like they're far below that.
And we'll focus a little bit more on the referenced years between 2020 and 2023. But I mean, it started in 2017. You started to mention some of the names. The 49ers did some weird stuff early. Solomon Thomas, he was not a top 3 guy in that draft. They bypassed the quarterbacks famously in that draft. And then they came back at the end of the first round, traded up to get Reuben Foster. So that's a miss on their first 2 draft picks, period. And their first 2 first rounders in Solomon Thomas and Reuben Foster. And Foster, because off-field stuff, the tape was great. And he was a talented guy. I really would have wished we could have seen what his NFL career would have looked like without the weird off the field stuff and some of the injuries, because he was phenomenal talent. And then, Solomon Thomas was kind of the opposite, where he was like, an NFL player, and he's still in the league, but was certainly not a top 5 player in any NFL draft. But then they went and drafted CJ Beathard, after bypassing on the early quarterbacks. And, he's number 3 quarterback at best in the NFL. Joe Williams never played a snap ever for any team in the NFL. And Kyle Shanahan wasn't going to be able to sleep if they didn't draft him. And he wasn't even on their draft board, which is insane. And Kyle Shanahan talked him into not only drafting Joe Williams, and the scouting department had it right. So we don't want to touch this guy. And Kyle Shanahan had to have him. And they went and got him in the 4th round. Never played for the team. But then they get George Kittle, right? And DJ Jones and Adrian Colbert in the 7th round of that draft. And you mentioned the undrafted player. And you look at the really good defenses the 49ers put together early in the Shanahan regime. And some of the best players on those defenses in DeForest Buckner, Eric Armstead, Richard Sherman, Jimmy Ward, like the 49ers didn't draft those guys. So when we talk about the 49ers in 2017 and having such a bad football team and coming in with a blank slate, they actually did have a lot of talent on that team. And obviously Richard Sherman they brought in later, but there was some very good, very important pieces that were still on the roster that were holdovers from the Trent Baalke era that helped kickstart those 49ers once they were good and kind of figured everything out in 2019. In 2018 was the Mike McGlinchey draft. Dante Pettis, kind of, whatever pick with McGlinchey. I don't think it was really worth it. And similarly to the Aaron Banks pick a few years later, it was like, okay, good starting player. And then you didn't sign him and he ended up signing somewhere else, but another team liked him enough to sign him. So it's a hit of a draft pick, but not the most amazing pick in the world. Then you go Dante Pettis, which was terrible. And then you go Fred Warner, which is a phenomenal draft pick, right? And so it's just back and forth, and they plucked DJ Reed late. And it's pretty remarkable. Dre Greenlaw in 2019, 5th round pick after drafting a punter, and Jalen Hurd, he didn't do anything. Early 2019, that was really the one draft where they nailed both of their early picks in first rounder and second rounder in Nick Bosa and Deebo Samuel in 2019. So it's really something that's kind of been a theme for the 49ers, and they keep doing it weird stuff early and just being ridiculously great later in drafts. And I don't think it's something that you can plan on. And I'm waiting for it to stop happening. And so I'm kind of looking at these last two drafts in 24 and 2025 to see if that continues, because if you can bottle that, then you can figure out how to get better in the early rounds and keep hitting on all those late rounders. And now you're just going to be a perennial, Super Bowl contender, because that's phenomenal drafting all the way around, instead of being half really bad and half really awesome at drafting.
Yeah. I guess the main thing is there's going to be hits and misses, but for whatever reason, the 49ers just miss earlier. It's easy to say that, and I think a lot of fans will probably say that, but I think when you have a shadow draft that could rival who the 49ers picked, I think that's when you have the right to question the picks that the 49ers made.
Throw down. And none of this hindsight where you're like, oh, they could have drafted this guy. I want to hear from people the day of the draft. Like, okay, well, put the name, one name. You get one shot, because these teams get one shot, right? What's your one shot? You get to pick one guy at the moment on the clock. And that's why I did the whole shadow draft thing for almost 10 years. And it was a lot of fun doing that. Next, Croc, let's get a little bit deeper into the 2020 to the 2023 drafts. We've got a question about swapping Super Bowl players, if it would have changed history, and a whole lot more from the 49ers mailbag next. This episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by Rugiet. Guys, if you've heard of Viagra or Cialis, I know you have. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average, in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. You can even read all the real customer reviews on their site. It's helping a lot of people feel more confident and present in the moment. And all you got to do is head to rugiet.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL to get 15% off today. That's Rugiet, RUGIET.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code LockedOnNFL for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit Rugiet website for full safety information.
Peacock, one more thing, heading back to the last segment.
Mm-hmm.
The one class that is maybe the most even is probably that 2020 class, where, you drafted Javon Kinlaw, and there were some people that maybe would have picked someone else. I think I would have taken CeeDee Lamb. No, Justin Jefferson. I would have traded back and drafted Justin Jefferson. That was my whole thing. But nonetheless, they got Brandon Ayuk. They ended up landing Brandon Ayuk in the first round. That was terrific. There were a couple other picks there. You had McKivitz. Obviously, he's filled in at right tackle, and last year played well. You had Juwan Jennings. You got a lot of production out of Juwan Jennings, and he's kind of looking like a guy that's going to be sticking around for a long time. And to not have that many drafts, I feel like they did draft a lot of impactful players there.
And if you do think the 49ers are drafting terribly, just go to whatever drafthistory.com and just go look at some other random teams draft, and you see some bad teams that they didn't even get the 5th round, 7th round guys. They got nothing. There's some really bad draft classes out there, so you'd be shocked at how bad some teams have drafted, and I think it's on coaching as well. And I think some players do get ruined and end up in weird spots and kind of go to dead zones in the NFL where they don't have much of a shot in their career. I think it's really a benefit for some players to go to the San Francisco 49ers. And I think you have to look at the development side of some of these things, especially with those late round guys as well, allowing them to develop into star players. But 2020, the Kinlaw thing, Tristan Wirfs was the big one at the time. We didn't know that Joe Staley was going to retire. For them to have not drafted Tristan Wirfs, and luckily they ended up getting to be able to trade for Trent Williams after the first round was over. And so that was obviously a huge part of that 2020 class as well. The 2 first rounders, so they only had 5 picks that year. Javon Kinlaw, Brandon Ayuk. They traded back up from, pick 31 to 25 to draft Brandon Ayuk in 2020. So that's one hit, one miss. Colton McKivitz. You got a starting tackle in round 5, again, phenomenal, and a starting caliber wide receiver in Juwan Jennings in round 7. Charlie Warner was as a 6th round tight end, as a backup tight end to give you some blocking element. Again, that's actually a really good draft for only 5 players, and then you add Trent Williams to the mix there. So again, you missed on the big one at the top, but you still hit on a lot of players, and it still turns out to be a really good draft and an important draft for the 49ers. Moving on to 2021, this is the really bad one because of you spent not only the draft pick on a quarterback, but you spent the 3 first-round picks, and it was the COVID year. I think they just really talked themselves into a lot of bad decisions at the top with that whole thing. And it wouldn't have been better if they drafted Mac Jones, who is now, turns out, a San Francisco 49er. Or Justin Fields. Like, it was just not the move to make, to go up from 12 and spend all those draft picks. Aaron Banks, good player, starter, round 2. Trace Sermon, what are you doing? Round 3. Ambry Thomas, never did much for the 49ers, showed a couple flashes. Jalen Moore was just kind of a backup tackle and got paid and might be the starting blindside protector for Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City this year. Deommodore Lenoir, phenomenal. Talanoa Hufanga, phenomenal. And then Elijah Mitchell, another really good pick. So again, first round, super weird. What are you doing spending 3 first-round picks on nothing? And then you get a lot of really good foundational players later in the draft. Moving on to 2022, it's Drake Jackson in round 2. Again, they didn't have a first rounder because of the Trey Lance move. Ty Davis Price, it was pretty much an identical repeat of a 3rd-round running back like Trey Sermon the year before. It gives you nothing. 43 attempts in his career so far. Danny Gray, round 3. Again, fast guy. Let's see, where are we at for catches here? 1 catch, 10 yards. Danny Gray for his career. Spencer Burford, solid backup, started at right guard early. We'll see if he's the swing tackle this year for the 49ers in the mix as a reserve, it looks like. Sam Womack playing better for Indy, I think, than he had for the San Francisco 49ers. Nick Sakel, reserve player. Kalia Davis, reserve player. Tariq Castro Fields never made the squad. And then Brock Purdy, the savior of all of it, potentially, in round 7. 2023, the last draft that was
real quick. Ty Davis Price. I was just looking at TDP to just see, like, where is he at these days? And he's on Tennessee Titans, but he was on the Philadelphia Eagles last season and got him a Super Bowl ring.
Sermon went through Philly as well, didn't he? Did he get a ring too, or was he? Where was he last year?
Nah.
He moved on. Okay.
Yeah.
Man, that hurts even more. Ty Davis Price over here with the ring, and the 49ers over here with no rings in that.
Let's see where. Let's see. Okay. Actually, maybe not a bad fit for Trey Sermon. He was with Philadelphia after his 1 year with the 49ers. That's just bad. You draft him in the 3rd round, you get 1 year out of him. The next season, Philadelphia Eagles. The next 2 seasons, actually. And he actually split time there with the Indianapolis Colts. So 49ers, Eagles, Colts, and now he's with the Pittsburgh Steelers, which just like Najee Harris may be a solid fit for him.
Yeah, they drafted Caleb Johnson, I believe, in round 3. The Steelers did, who I like a lot for them. It'd be a nice fit. But it's interesting. So Drake Jackson not on the team. Ty Davis Price not on the team. Danny Gray not on the team. Spencer Burford, he's still around, and this is the year 4. So this should be the end of the rookie contracts still for these players too. So it's not like they became free agents and left. Sam Womack not on the team. Zakel and Kalia Davis might not make the team this year. Tariq Castro Fields didn't make it as a rookie. Brock Purdy, mega contract, $53 million per year. Just an insane draft in a lot of ways. Yeah, Brock Purdy really saved you when you start talking back to back what the 2021 draft was at the beginning of that draft and all those picks, and then you still get a quarterback in Brock Purdy as Mr. Irrelevant, number 262. Insane. And then 2023 was the final draft that was referenced here. So we'll look at this one, which, again, no first rounder, no second rounder because of the Christian McCaffrey trade as well. So now you're talking about multiple 3rd rounders because you had their original 3rd rounder, and then you had 2 comp picks. That was Jair Brown, might start at safety for the 49ers this year. I'm not sure he would start if it wasn't for some injuries, though. Jake Moody and Cam Latu, who's already not on the football team. Darrell Luter, hanging on, competing for one of the last spots on the roster. Robert Beal, again, competing for one of the last spots on the roster. I actually think he probably won't make the team this year. Then you got D. Winters in the mix to start. Ronnie Bell gone. Jalen Graham and Braden Willis, the other 2 7th-rounders that are hanging on and competing for a roster spot. So we could have only 2 guys left from the 2023 class on the roster when week 1 comes around in the 2025 season too. So I think there's some truth to Brock Purdy potentially saving some jobs when you look at those classes, but they also hit on a lot of picks. And when you look at the amount of starters they got, it's not off from other teams. And so again, weird stuff, a lot of bad early, and then a lot of great late to save him. And you hope they kind of flip that in 2024 and 2025, because the early returns look a lot better, especially with some of the earlier picks in round 1, 2, 3. And obviously we don't know what anybody's going to turn out from in 2025, but the 2024 class looks a lot better early.
The 22 class with Drake Jackson, man, I'm looking at his Wikipedia, was on the San Francisco 49ers, of course, but man, didn't even finish out his rookie contract, and he's currently not on an NFL roster. Not ideal.
Not ideal at all.
Also, what's not ideal is for the Giants just gave up a 3-run homer in the first inning.
You hate to see that.
Marlon's kind of kicking the Giants' butt right now.
Yeah, Giants baseball, a lot more fun. Love the juicy bringing in a superstar player. And that's what's been fun about covering the 49ers. As weird as some of it's been a very interesting team and a lot of star players and talents to cover, which always makes it a lot more fun. And when you think about like the McCaffrey trade and the Trent Williams trade, and even the Trey Lance swing and miss, you ended up getting a quarterback. But I get going for star power because it's just so much more fun for us fan base to have that star power and not just be like toiling in mediocrity. And we've talked about how, the Kyle Shanahan teams, you're either a 6-win team or you're in the NFC Championship game or the Super Bowl. I think that's a more fun team to cover, even if it's not great for maybe your heart, if you're a 49ers fan. Next, we got a question from Leighton on the same lines. And then what about a Super Bowl player swap as well? If you could pick one player from one of the losing Super Bowl rosters and plug him into one of the other losing Super Bowl rosters and help the 49ers win one of those Super Bowls with that one player, who would it be? Who would it be? Croc has an answer for that next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by Gametime and the Gametime app. If you're in the market for tickets, if you love sports, if you love music, if you love comedy, if you love theater, you got to have Gametime in your back pocket, ready to go. Have you ever decided to go last minute, head to a ball game, friends or family? I've done it a lot. I've gone to the San Francisco Giants game many times using Gametime. It's a phenomenal resource. Maybe it's game day. You suddenly realize we've done this Friday. Hey, I got the evening off. I can go. I can take my kid and I can go into the city and catch a ball game. It's exactly where Gametime comes in. The easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, even invite a bigger group to come with you. Gametime makes it possible. Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch. And they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying tickets. And how about even bigger savings? Zone deals, 10% off exclusive zone deals for FIFA Club World Cup matchups. And, of course, concert tickets. Find it all and take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So we've laid it all out there. And again, if I'm grading, if the goal is to grade John Lynch on the 49ers drafts, I think it's pretty good. It's kind of like a B. It looks really weird though. It looks really weird with how they ended up with that B grade. And they start hitting some early picks, it's an A. They start missing on the late picks, we're talking about a D, or you're not passing anymore, right? Like, so it's very, very interesting team build for the San Francisco 49ers. Leighton's question is about the evolution of John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan from day one till the present. So from selecting Joe Williams to getting their contracts done early, what they still need to improve upon, and what have they already improved upon? I would say the one thing, Joe Williams, just to interject here really quick, Croc, because I want to get your answer. I think character, they've realized, is so important. And I think Joe Williams and Reuben Foster early taught them a lesson from day one, where you can't just be like, this guy's talented, so we're going to fit him in. And that burned them multiple times early. And so I think that's a really big one. And then you see some of the players that they've brought in, and super high character guys and like winners, like McCaffrey, he's a winner. Purdy, he's a winner. Warner, like the way the Diamador Lenore plays, even with as weird as things have gotten with Brandon Ayuk, like when he's on the field, he's blocking for you. He's a winning type of player. He plays unselfishly, even though it seems like he's acting weird and selfish off the field with all this stuff in recent years. So I think that's the biggest thing that they've learned from 2017.
Yeah, I'd say definitely the character aspect of it. I mean, think about the guys that they've drafted in the last, I don't know, 7 years, right? Just after that debacle. I feel like everybody's been good on the character side of things. Now, whether they're going to be a good football player or not, that's a totally different conversation. But I do think that they've put a lot more just thoughts and put more credence into getting good human beings. I will say though, I think sometimes you need a couple bad apples. Look at Kansas City Chiefs, right? Like, I'm pretty sure Andy Reid doesn't want a team full of these guys that are going to make things difficult in the locker room or shake things up. But just a few guys where people would say, oh, they're taking a chance on that guy. I think you need a few. Matter of fact, I mean, not on the character side of things, but maybe on the injury side of things. They just drafted one this past season with Simmons, where everybody else was scared to draft Simmons. Chiefs said, we'll take a chance. And I think they do that a lot. So, character things, they've drafted some guys or signed some guys that may have some red flags. Same with the Philadelphia Eagles, right? I mean, the defensive tackle out of Georgia, he had some crazy incident type stuff going on off the field. And they were like, we'll still take you top 10. So I'm not saying I would live on that philosophy, but I wouldn't stray away from it the way that the 49ers have.
Yeah, and it's a double-edged sword there with the character stuff too, because there's football character and there's personal character. And if they're available for you, and some guys I think it helps to be a great football player, especially with certain positions, to be a little bit off. Let's be honest, right? Like you don't have those inhibitions. You're not afraid to stick your face in there, and sometimes that can make your life off the field a little awkward if you're wired a certain way. So I'm kind of with you on that. But if you're unavailable, or if you are poisoning the well a little bit and you're making things harder for the other players on your team because of other antics and other things and the way you act, then now you're distracting from the team, and you're detracting, and you're making the team actively worse. So it's very much an individual basis as far as that goes. What do the 49ers need to improve upon? The second half of Leighton's question here. Like, what's the thing that they can change, and it's a Lombardi instead of losing in the championship game, losing in the Super Bowl?
As far as what they've currently been doing?
Yeah. Is there anything that you think that they could still get to?
I think ideally just maybe put a little bit more resources into the offensive line. Like, we could make all the excuses in the world for them, right? I mean, we hear that a lot with the overall record that the 49ers have. And we're like, oh, well, this reason. We're saying, oh, well, are we making too many excuses? I think we can find ways to make excuses for maybe why they haven't put more resources into the offensive line, but maybe they should, regardless of if it's 100% their type of guy. Like, is he a good football player? Is he projected to go high? That's a guy that potentially could really help the 49ers. So maybe put more resources into the O-line as opposed to just kind of playing it safe, which it seems like with guys like McKivitz, starting year after year, that is a little bit on the safer side of things.
A couple more real quick, and I've got an easy answer for this one. Trey Niner says, gun to your head, who's playing left guard? First of all, why gun to your head? Why you got to be so intense about this question? Left guard is Ben Barch. It's Ben Barch's job to lose right now at left guard. I think it's more interesting. I think all 5 starters, we really know what it's going to look like. Can somebody come up and take one of those jobs, and how the backup roles and the depth is going to shake out? I think is probably the more interesting thing on the offensive line. And obviously everyone's staying healthy. How about this one from Upton Stout burner account? If you were to swap out any player from one of the Super Bowl losing teams, Croc, and replace them with a player on the other 2 teams, which swap would best guarantee a Super Bowl win?
Let's go Mike Ipati for John Feliciano and Spencer Burford.
Okay, I see where you're going with this. One, like, you only need him for one play, one block, right? I
I mean,
more,
come on, Micah Potty was
one specific big one.
Yeah, terrific guard. That was the question, right? I answered the question right.
Yes,
correct?
yes. So the three Super Bowl losing teams. There was one Harbaugh era team, two Shanahan era teams that have lost Super Bowls. You're picking one of those players to place on one of the other ones to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, Micah Potty, take out those other guards. Let's go. Could have went right tackle, but I'll go Micah Potty. And maybe in both of those games, you talking about 2019 and 2000, was it 22, 23?
Yeah, 20. So it was 2019 season. That was the Super Bowl was played in 2020, and then it was the 2023 season where the Super Bowl was played in 2024.
Okay, yeah, those I would feel comfortable with Micah Potty on both of those teams. Because remember, 2019 season, right guard, it was same guy, Chris Jones, and he was batting balls down and kind of changed the trajectory of the way that fourth quarter ended.
I love that answer. I love that. Block up Chris Jones. I think the easy answer is say Brock Purdy for Jimmy G in the 2019 season Super Bowl.
I don't know,
does he hit the Emmanuel Sanders throw? How about Cap?
Yeah?
How about Purdy for the Cap Super Bowl, Cap for the Jimmy G Super Bowl? Maybe you win them both.
I think you win them both. The Purdy one is interesting though, because there were opportunities that he too missed. Now, was it that specific kind of play? No, but there were some missed opportunities to where, hey, you just kind of make this decision and this throw here, like you win.
How about this? How about this, Croc? Tell me if this statement is true or false. The 49ers win all three Super Bowls with the same three quarterbacks, just in a different order. Purdy's the quarterback in so I would put Purdy at the in the season where the 49ers lost to the Seahawks in the NFC Championship game. But you put Purdy at quarterback.
Nah, you want to see him against the Legion of Boom defense?
I want to see him make that throw to Crabtree in the corner of the end zone instead of that flat ass short pass that Kaepernick threw. Maybe not throw there. Maybe a pre-snap read, maybe a post-snap read takes him to a new place. I would just like to see that throw not happen. And then
some of those deep, the even playoff games, if we're just going playoffs, where we watch Brock play against a good defense, I haven't quite cared for what I saw. Like the Dallas Cowboys game.
But you would still rather have Brock instead of Jimmy in 2019?
Yes.
So let's say, what if Cap was the quarterback in... No, can't do that. I was going to say, what if Cap was the quarterback in 2019, Brock was the quarterback in the Harbaugh era, and then Jimmy G was the quarterback instead of Brock Purdy in the latest Super Bowl? Do you win all three?
Jimmy G is such a wild card. Can't trust him. Can't trust him further than you could throw him.
Yeah.
So I think I'm just out on Jimmy. Cap, at least I know, not the best thrower, but man, he made some plays that even just make it competitive or keep the 49ers in the game or potentially try to, win the game.
Yeah.
Just make plays with his legs, a couple throws. I mean, that throw, think about that Seahawks championship game the 49ers lost. That throw to Anquan Bolden, where he kind of put it in the spot right above the defender's head, and Bolden just took it off the helmet of the guy. I mean, and he was kind of like falling back and threw it.
You think about what Kyle Shanahan did with rookie year, because that was the same era as Cap, rookie year RG3. What would Cap look like in his prime with Kyle Shanahan at the helm? I think he probably could have done bigger things even than with Greg Roman, potentially. But would he have been frustrating in some other ways that obviously clearly? But then there was like why was the Trey Lance pick made if he didn't want to have that element, the running element? See, that's one of the weird things with Kyle Shanahan.
I don't think it's that he didn't.
Kyle's scouting mind is odd.
I don't think it was that he doesn't want the running element. I think he does. He values the passer first more.
He wants Josh Allen is what he wants.
He would love Josh Allen.
Yeah.
But it's like, there's only one Josh Allen.
Only one Josh Allen. And remember, the Bills and Josh Allen throttled the 49ers late in that season before they drafted Trey Lance. I really have a feeling that was part of what Kyle Shanahan was. Like, man, could I get myself one of those guys? And nope, he didn't. But he
missed that window, pal.
Got himself a that's the other thing. What would the drafted look? Because remember, they were looking at 2018 quarterbacks. We're out of time here, but this is another maybe topic starter for later. That 2018 season, they didn't have their quarterback because obviously they bowed out of the quarterback early in the 2017 draft, and they had the plan for Kirk Cousins, and then the Jimmy G trade came along. If the Jimmy G trade doesn't happen, they go into that offseason without their quarterback still, and that's the 2018 draft.
They draft Josh Allen.
They might have drafted.
Remember, he said, "This is Kyle's words. Maybe it's revisionist history. Maybe it's hindsight." But he said, if Josh would have came out the year before, so 2017 draft, he would have drafted him.
And he also said he loved, because he admitted they were scouting the quarterbacks, and he had already looked at Sam Darnold and really liked Sam Darnold as well. So they might even have taken Sam Darnold. Would they have traded up in that draft? And would they have not done would they have seen that draft class and the talent there and not signed Kirk Cousins? Or would they have still signed Kirk Cousins and then drafted one of these quarterbacks as like an heir apparent? Or could they have ended up with Josh Rosen? Because who knows where they would have been selecting. But here's the thing is they would have been picking like top 3, because without Jimmy G, they wouldn't have won those games at the end of the year. And they could barely win a single game as it was. So they might have had the first pick in the draft that year.
Yeah. Well, they got Brock Purdy now. So, and like you said, Brock Purdy saved their jobs. Obviously a terrific quarterback. Just gotta go win it.
Topics, questions, hit them up. It's a lot of fun in the off season. We can go anywhere you want to go, at BD Peacock, at Coach Crocky on Twitter. Hit us up in the comments on YouTube. Subscribe while you're there. Croc and I back tomorrow right here. No, we'll be back Monday next week. Have a good weekend right here. Locked On 49ers.